Okay.
We are broadcasting live.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is the Town of Mono Council meeting on October 24th, 2023. The meeting is being conducted both in chambers and by means of electronic participation as permitted by Section 238, 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended and the Town of Mono Procedural Bylaw 2020-42. If you've downloaded the agenda from the website, please note that there was an amended agenda put on the website yesterday, and on that agenda it gives you the instructions as to how to view the meeting live starting at 9 o'clock. It also gives you the instructions as to how to join the meeting, either by using the link that is provided or by dialing a long-distance number. We have a quorum, so we'll start the meeting. For the people in the audience, the emergency exits are to the east behind you. For everyone that's listening or in the audience, please note that the meeting is being video recorded and broadcast. Councillors may disclose pecuniary interest now or any time during the meeting, and we'll start the meeting with a land acknowledgement. Councillor Manklow.
We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tionatani, Atawandaran, Hodi, Noshoni, and Anishinaabe. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous people with this land, its waterways, and resources.
Thank you, Councillor Manklow. The first motion I have is to approve the agenda. That's the agenda that we posted on the website yesterday. Do I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Capes, Councillor Davies, did you have a question on the agenda? Any additions or changes to the agenda? Anyone opposed to the motion? That motion is carried. My next motion is a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of I don't know the date, session 19. Do I have a mover? Councillor Davey, Councillor Manklow. Any changes or comments on the minutes? All right, all in favor? That motion carries. I have no proclamations, so we now come to public question period. Mr. Simpson, do we have any questions?
We do have one question, Deputy Mayor Nix. However, Mayor Krulman has asked that question be held until he arrives, and he'll be, as you know, 5 minutes or so late. So if I may suggest we go to questions either virtually and or in the gallery.
Are there any questions from the, yes, Mr. Monroe.
Good morning, Council. Bill Monroe, Bayberry Road. I'd like to bring up something you're going to be speaking about this morning on the agenda. The Director of Recreation is going to talk about resurfacing tennis courts, which sounds very logical since it's been 10 or 12 years since it's been done. But this is going to be financed between the town and the tennis club. The tennis club, at the last time when this came out, after the grants from the government, there was $137,000 due, which was to be split between the town and the club of $68,000, nearly $69,000. Excuse me. The tennis club didn't have the funds for that, so they borrowed it from the town under an agreement. And were given a very generous amortization for that. However, last year, the price came in at $60,000 more than original.
Yeah.
That, according to the agreement, should have been split between the tennis court and us. But the town decided to pay it from a reserve called the Parks and Loo Reserve. My question is now, the $23,730 is due from a tennis club for the portion of the surfacing. Do they have the money to pay for this?
All right, I'm going to ask Ms. Heaton to answer that question because it's over my head.
That is an expenditure that is expected every 10 to 12 years, and the tennis club does make accommodation to make sure that they do save for that expenditure out of their fees that they charge to become a member of the club. So yes, they do have that money. Past history is they've never had a challenge with paying or sharing with this expense when we go forward and resurface the courts. And they have expressed to me they do have the money.
So they definitely have the money then?
They've told me they have money.
Okay, thank you.
You had another question?
I have another question, if you don't mind, Deputy
Quite
Mayor.
all right.
This is about the resolution of advice to council from the DEI committee. The mandate for the DEI is, let me see, recommendations to council including identify systemic barriers facing accessible municipal services, information, programs and facilities. Now, that is the mandate that the committee decided upon. So I assume they have problems like that when they made a mandate to see if someone was being prohibited from accessing municipal services. They have asked for a consultant to be hired to help them in this. I'd like to know why, when they know their mandate and they made the mandate, why do they need a consultant to tell them how to run a committee? If I was on the committee, there's got to be someone complained about this in order for it to be a subject. I would look into the subject myself and find out if I could rectify this. I don't see a consultant being necessary for this. And number two, you can go on Google and type in DEI and you get pages of help and consultants and all sorts of stuff. You can go to the county. They had a big survey done. They could help. It's,
All right, that's a good question. We have two counselors who sit on that committee.
yes, I know.
Did you, Counselor Capes will address this question.
Well, Councillor Magdalene can jump in, and so
Yeah,
can
but you
Mr.
said it.
Dunmore. But I think, thank you for your question. You've narrowed the reading of the mandate. The mandate is a page long and includes a lot more than what you've stated there. So I would like to say that. I don't have it in front of me. I could open it, but I don't think that's fruitful at this point in time. But the mandate includes a lot more than what you just read. It's a page long. The committee is doing the things that they have the expertise to do. And yes, you can Google DEI, and yes, we have a membership to the Canadian Diversity website. And there are things that we can do, but there is also things that we need to do as a town, and that's to create a lens in which to look at everything we do through. This is not new to Mono. Every community, every organization is doing the same thing. And that lens is specific to the services that we provide and how we provide them. The committee is not a group of professionals who can do a DEI lens. They are a group of citizens who are bringing their experience and their knowledge from their workplaces related to the subject to the table to have conversations about how we can improve, how we make everybody feel like they belong and feel included in Mono, and make sure that we don't have barriers to receiving services. But the lens is complicated. There needs to be a lens to look at all of our policies through. There needs to be a lens to look at all of our services through. There needs to be a lens for staff when they're looking at recreation or when they're looking at planning, when they're looking at anything, to say, are we being open and inclusive? Are we putting up barriers to any group or population that might have a hard time reading these policies, knowing that these policies are inclusive of them, especially for staff as well, and how we hire, how we look after staff, how staff interact, how they react with the public. It's very complicated. So to say that you can just Google it, yeah, you can Google it, but we need a specific lens which sets out the questions that we can
okay.
ask
I'm
to
gonna
make sure that we answer.
Thank you for that
Thank
very
you.
long answer. I will point out, too, we probably are going to have this debate later on in the meeting when this motion comes before us. Councillor Manklow, did you want to add anything?
Well, Elaine's been very thorough. This is not about the mandate in general. It's about a request to develop a lens, which is a tool that's used to evaluate everything that we do. And if you look at other municipalities, you'll find that many of them have a DEI lens. I thought the same thing as you did. We could do this ourselves. But it's not actually that easy. You need a separate, if you like, a sub-lens for everything we do, whether it's communications, or it's Mike recruiting somebody, or it's Kim setting up a recreational program. And so these lenses are individualized, and a series of questions which you can ask to make sure that you're including people. If you aren't including them, what you can do about it. I think it's a good thing. And if you look at other municipalities, look at Ottawa, for example. They have a very good lens.
Thank you, Councillor Manklow. Is that answer, those answers satisfactory?
No, there's another few questions. If as many municipalities have done this, why not ask them? This isn't a university course. It's a committee that wants advice. And also, couldn't you find a consultant? Why were staff asked to find a consultant? Couldn't you find a
Mr.
consultant?
Monroe, are you going to stay for the rest of the meeting? Because in some sense, I think this discussion we're having, probably we should.
Yes,
hold
but
it
I
when-
won't be allowed to speak then, sir.
I will let you.
No, that's after in camera. I won't be here for in camera.
All right, then go ahead and finish what you have to say now.
Well, that's what I was just saying. Why not find your own consultant? Because, as I say, there's many available, and you could advice from all the municipalities who have taken advantage of this, rather than put more onus on the staff to add to your list of things to do.
Okay, I hope.
That's a comment. It's not a question, sir.
It is a comment, and I hope we keep it in mind when the motion comes before us at today's council meeting. I appreciate your eagle eye on our budget matters and other things, Mr. Burns. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the audience? We have some members online. Are there questions from anyone who's online? Okay, that's, Mr. Mayor Harmon. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. And I just wanted to start by saying thank you for your work and the staff's work on preparing a proposal for the Purple Hill Park, both from the pad perspective and the park. We're happy to see planning and action taken on that front. I just wanted to ask if the community would have an opportunity to engage with the potential future consultations surrounding plans for the park in that regard. So that was kind of my main question, and how that would come about.
Again, we have a question that may be coming up later on in the agenda, but Ms. Heaton, do you want to address the question now?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for tuning in today and asking that. Excuse me. What we've done in the past when we've had other capital expenditures from any department within Mono that has raised interest from the public is we normally do a survey throughout the community, and we gather information from the survey. And then we'll take the survey, we analyze the results, and we'll look at other factors as well as far as, in this case, amenities, space, that sort of thing. and then a recommendation will come forward to council. If at that point, council would like us to do further investigation, then by all means, they can so do, direct staff to do so, which we would do.
Thank you, Ms. Heaton. Is that a satisfactory answer? Bradley?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate the answer.
Okay. Now, I have a couple of other names on the online screen. I can't quite read them, but are there any other questions from the audience online? There's a Dave, there's a Dave. Oh, there. That's a recreation staff member. Okay, no other questions? All right, let's move on the agenda then. Delegations. We don't have any delegations today? Yes.
Excuse me, there's one more question that, from the online submission.
Oh.
That John may have more information, but I'd be happy to answer to the best of my ability until
this
John's attendance.
Well, is this the one that Fred asked me to hold until John gets here, the mayor gets here?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Can we then, Mike, can we just hold that question?
Entirely up to you, Deputy Mayor.
I'd prefer, if it's something John wanted held until he's in the chair, I'd prefer to hold it until then.
Okay.
So we'll move on, no delegations, so now we get into the juicy subject of the budget. We have two things on the budget today. One is the cost of living rate over the last 12 months. Mr. Haluka will address that. And the second is the Recreation Department's capital budget. So, cost of living. Les, you've given us a report. Do you want to address that?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nix. As council is familiar, we use this formula for a few council terms. Basically, we take the average of the Ontario CPI over a 12-month period up to the month before we start discussing the budget in November. Last year, when we set the 2023 budget, the formula came up with 6.5%. Council went with 4%. And this year, the average formula comes in at 4.5%, and we're recommending that council can pick up the formula again and go with the 4.5% for the 2024 budget.
Thank you. And for historical contents, for at least 12 of the 14 years that I've been on council, we have used the CPI both as a cap for what our budget is going to increase and for our COLA clause with respect to wages. As Les pointed out, last year was the exception. Does anyone on council have a comment or a question? Councillor Capes.
Thank you, Les, and I'm grateful for the explanation of how we calculate this. I do want to ask a question for consideration in that we discard the numbers from 2022 and only use the numbers from 2023, and that would bring us to a number of 3.9% for the increase for this year, because I don't really want to go to 4.5%. So that's a question for consideration.
Les, I'll give the first answer and you can modify it as you see fit. We use exactly the same methodology that the Canada Pension Plan and everyone else does. The key difference is from what month to what month do we go. Over the long run, it makes no difference between different agencies, okay? We've picked the October to September 12-month period. We've done that for 13 or 14 years. If we change that now, we upset the apple cart. All Les has given you is what the average 12-month CPI increase has been in the same format that we've done it for 12 or 14 years. Les, did you want to add anything to that?
And it's not just CPI that does that. When the provincial government sets the limit on rental increases, they use a set period as well every year. I believe it's from July 1st to June 30th or so, but the deputy mayor is correct. The same formula is used by different entities. It might be different months, might be a different period, but it's consistent over the years, and at the end of the day, it works out fairly if you keep the same formula.
And my wife's teacher's pension plan uses the same formula too, but I forget from which month to which month. So that's the answer, Councillor Capes. I wouldn't support what you've asked for because I think we have to keep the same month-to-month period that we've done for 14 years. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Manklow.
I guess my question is, why do we use this number?
Well, historically, we used it the year after I got on council because there had been a freeze in wages. Then the first year I was on council, we increased them. We did a very back-of-the-hand calculation, and then we said, what are we going to do in the future? And a lot of other agencies say, well, whatever else we do, we'll increase wages and set a cap according to the cost of living. Now, we double-check this every 4 years. One time it was 5 years. By hiring an HR consultant to look at it. But it gives us something that we can put on the table as a starting point for both what our budget should increase and for how much our wages should increase. A lot of other people do it. I'm not saying it's not sacrosanct, it's not magic. We just say to everyone, we'll increase it by the same cost of living that everyone else is doing.
If I follow up on that, thank you. I think that there's more to it than that, though. We're really trying to match what the cost will likely be in the next year. Well,
we
hold
all-
on, I'm not finished.
We always look back behind.
I know
us.
you look back, but this is an unusual time right now. We've had costs of CPIs going from 2-something up to 6 or 7 and back down. Now it's at 3.6. So what are the expenses going to be next year? They're more likely going to be closer to 3.6, or are they going to be at 4.5? And I think that's why Elaine's bringing this up. She's trying to be current.
Okay, could I just point out,
No, you
Councillor
can't,
Manglero,
because I still have the floor.
we're making no decisions
I
today.
know you're not making decisions, but I'm trying to give some rationale to this.
Go ahead.
And I think there's some reason for looking at a number which is pertinent to the expenses that we're going to have for the next 12 months.
I would just point out that we can't guess the future. Yes, Councillor Davies. Davy, sorry.
Thanks for all the comments about it, and it's very interesting, but, I mean, are we going to just go arbitrary, or are we going to follow some sort of a pattern? Last year, we were all upset because the actual unusual situation is not now. The unusual situation is when interest and inflation were all nothing. That was the unusual time. Now, things peaked, and they seem to be settling down, and it's nice to see that, 3.6, I don't know what the hell happened in June that made it 2.6, that was great, but, to average out is just, seems to me to be commonsensical over a year, since it was a year ago that we looked at it. If we had some assessments just in January of 2023, then, going forward, then sure, to just change it to be every 6 months. But we do this annually, and so it seems to me it should be annually. I know we don't like particularly the 4.5, but if we're just going with arbitrary numbers of what we think will please people, it's putting us back in the hole. We're in the hole already. We held back on giving our staff, they all are living with the cost of living too, and we held them back last year. So I would be loath to starting a precedent where you just choose a number because we like what it is, because we end up without having the money that we need on these budget issues.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I would just point out to everybody that all this is doing is laying a report on the table about what the cost of living has been over the past year. There's no decisions being made today. Yes, Mr. Clerk.
There is a prepared resolution if council does want to consider it.
Oh, okay, you're absolutely right. Maybe we are making a decision. Okay,
Well,
let me put the motion on the floor, and then we can debate it further. The motion is that we approve the use of an inflation rate of 4.5% for 2024 budget purposes. Now, before we debate it, can I have a mover and a seconder?
Sure.
Councillor Davy with no S.
Sure.
Councillor Capes with an S. All right, yes, Mr. Dunmore.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just stepping back on what happened when you first sat on council was we did indeed have 4 years of wage freezes. And council didn't pick an arbitrary number to do the raise. We had hired an HR consultant, which council has normally committed to on a 4-year cycle. And that resulted in a 9% pay increase requirement for staff. Basically, by setting the CPI calculations that you utilize now, you're setting a steady and firm rate of inflation increases. By deviating from that, you are, in theory, looking forward to a HR consultant report that will once again show that you are behind the normal path. So moving forward, there's a good chance that you're going to be looking at a higher number once the four-year cycle is completed and the HR consultant comes in.
Thank you, Mr. Dunmore. Your memory must be better than mine. I thought it was 6%. You say it was 9%. Les can correct it. I don't know who's right, but
It was between
the
9 and
main
10.
point that Mr. Dunmore made is correct, because whenever the four-year cycle is up, we hire our HR consultant again. If we don't keep up with, at least with inflation, we're going to have a large increase in front of us. Yes, Councillor Davy? No,
Thank
did I
you.
miss you, sir?
Just to follow up on that, because he was, thank you for that. But I was referring to last year, just last year, which is my only experience, where there was a number, there was a budget, it all balanced. The council said, no, we didn't want that number, and so then we had to cut things. And all those things that we cut are still there, right? We're still going to need a
That's right.
truck, and we're still going to need, right? So that's what I was referring to. But thanks for the background. That's helpful.
Councillor Capes?
I know that we like to do things that we do and do and do year after year after year. However, I do think we should consider using the current year. There's nothing set in stone that says you have to use 12 months. And I know other organizations who are doing 3.5% increases. And I know that across some of the fire boards, they're doing 4%. So I'm just saying, use the current year. And it doesn't put you backwards or forwards, again, because when we get to the 5-year mark or 4-year mark, when we have to do a market study on salaries, other organizations are going to put their rates up at different times. Like, it's not, they're going to establish what their number is. I don't think it's going to put us behind when we get there. We're not saying nothing. I'm just saying, can we use the current year and move to just using the current year and the average of the months in the current year so that we are more in line with the current year and not backwards? I understand what you're saying, Les, about it evens out over time, but I just would like to put that forward. So that's just my thought.
Okay, are there any other comments before I call the question? Yes, Mr. Creelman.
Pardon my being a little late. I've always taken the position that whatever figure we choose is for budget planning purposes only. We're not committed to it at budget time. We can alter it then if we find out the news is bad. And I'm with Councillor Capes. I think we should go to current year and not be retrospective. And I point out that I believe Orangeville is at 2.5%.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any other comments before I call the question? Yes, Les?
The only other comparable other than Orangeville, I do know that the county went with 4%.
That's correct. No further comments? I'm going to...
And some of
Yes.
us were uncomfortable about that.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Manklow, boy, this is a long debate.
Could you read the
The motion? Yes.
motion, and then I'd like to have it explained to me, the
That we
implications of it.
approve the use of an inflation rate of 4.5% for 2024 budget purposes. Before I ask Les to explain what the motion means, I'll give you my interpretation. It means after we've dealt with the capital budgets, Les will go back and prepare a budget, and he'll have in his mind that he can't increase the total budget by more than 4.5%. He will also, in setting that budget, unless he's instructed otherwise, increase the wage component of the budget for 2024 by 4.5%. He can receive other instructions on that, but that will be his guidance. Les, do you want to correct me if I've said anything
That's dead
incorrectly?
on. That's correct, yes.
Okay. Now, do you have a comment, Councillor Manklow?
No, that's just
Okay,
fine.
then I'm gonna-
Last year, we had the same idea.
Yes.
And we came in with a budget, the staff came in with a budget that was well above the level. So I'm really wondering what the purpose of it is.
Gives Les some guidance. All right, we've had a healthy debate on this subject. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please raise your hands. All those against the motion on the floor? The motion fails. I don't have an alternative motion, Les, so good luck in drawing up
So
the
that's a
budget. No, the motion has failed, and the debate is over. We're now going to move to the second. Yes?
I mean, someone can, just on the point of procedure, a member of council can move another motion if it's moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Does anyone on council
I would
want to move?
recommend then at least going with the county route of 4%.
You're not allowed to move motions, Les.
No, no, I said I'm making a recommendation for a motion.
Does anyone on council want to move an alternative motion? Councillor Capes.
I think there's too many mics on. I would like to move that we use the average of the months in 2023 that were in the calculation, which gives a 3.9% increase for the purposes of budgeting.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder to that motion? Mayor Creelman seconded the motion. Does anyone want to speak for or against that motion? Councillor Davey.
We have staff give us advice, and we're gonna 0.1%. The recommendation is 4, the county's 4. Why go with 3.9 instead of, I mean, I appreciate that you have said that you've calculated out from January 23 to September those numbers, though I would argue that the 2.6 is giving you the 3.9 instead of the 4 that the county has used. I mean, I don't understand why we want to be doing things differently and hamstringing
Just a second, yes, you can.
the treasurer when he's just making a budget, just giving him some guidance.
Okay, a
not
convoluted
res-
question. I'll let Councillor Capes give a convoluted
Thank
answer.
you. I am using the numbers that are there and calculating an average, which is what we would do of those months. So it's not just an arbitrary 3.9. It is the calculation that I came up with. If that's incorrect, then we can use whatever it is. But I did my calculation, it was 3.9. It's not a willy-nilly, it's using every single month that was in there for 2023 and using the average of those months to come up with that number.
Does anyone else want to speak to the motion on the floor?
Ralph's doing a quick calculation.
Ralph is doing a quick calculation.
I trust your math.
All right, I'm going to call the question. I can't quite reread the deputy, or Mr. Clerk, can you read the motion?
Councillor Capes, did you want it as you worded it, or did you want to just have it that we approve the use of an inflationary rate of 3.9%? Did you want that other
Okay,
Okay.
that's the motion. Is that
That we
acceptable to
approve the
seconder?
use of an inflationary rate of 3.9% for the 2024 budget.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. All those against the motion, please raise your hand. The motion carries. I think we've finished this item on the agenda.
Well done, Fred.
We now move on. Oh, did you, sorry.
Yep, I can,
You really like this position,
I was enjoying myself there. I didn't have to work very hard, and I was greatly entertained.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor Creelman. So we did the gallery and the online question period
Okay.
prior to your entry, and then there is one online question that was submitted
Yes.
that we held until your attendance.
Okay, I'm happy to deal with that, and then we'll go to the capital budget for Rex Department.
So the question, Your Worship, was, are there any updates on Rogers' progress installing fiber? It seems like the project has been stalled with no updates to the permit map in months.
Okay, so I had a discussion with our contact at Rogers about 2 weeks ago. He assured me that the project has not been canceled, as was a rumor at one point. He absolutely enjoys dealing with Mono from a number of perspectives, not the least of which that we are showing flexibility as to how the installation is done. It is fair to say, however, that they are regrouping with their contractor, and hopefully that will result in a faster installation than what we've seen thus far. They encountered a lot of stone and rocks and boulders on the third line, And we're trying to redirect them as to maybe places where they can make better progress than spending a week doing what, or spending a month what they would normally get accomplished in a week, which is the rate of progress on the third line. So I will be in touch with them again. But again, they assured me repeatedly that the project is not in jeopardy, but they are regrouping with their subcontractor.
Okay, we can move on to the capital budget.
Okay, Recreation Department capital budget. Kim?
Thank you, Mayor Creelman and members of council. I've submitted my budget for the Recreation Department to you. First, I will also say lead maintenance Dave Mikowski is also online at this time. He was instrumental in helping me prepare for this budget, so we have him as well as a source of reference if need be. The focus of the budget this year for recreation is threefold, as you can see. It's obviously to continue with our mandate to constantly provide safe and enjoyable environments for people who use our parks and trails. We do pride ourselves on the amount of inspections and the amount of maintenance that we do on these amenities, and I'm very proud to say the incredible shape that they are kept in and how safe they are kept. So that's to follow as well for 2024. Also want to continue with our green energy conversion in the Recreation Department. We're slowly making our way through all facets of our department, and so you will see that there is a continuation in that regard. And this year, particularly, I'd like council to pay special attention to the fact that we do have some aging infrastructure that does need to be brought to your attention, and some recognition of it. Going forward, the other item, which we've already spoken a bit about already in this council meeting, is just the increased interest that we've had in the Purple Hill Park after the delegation was made. As a result of that, even though we did do investigation into the costs of the amenities that were requested through that delegation, we felt that because of the increased interest, at this time it would be prudent to go forward with gathering additional information and analyzing it throughout 2024, and then coming back with you with another recommendation for the 2025 budget in that concern. Pretty much everything else within the budget is quite self-explanatory. I'm here to answer any questions, as well as Dave, and look forward to working with you on working through this budget.
Ralph?
So, thank you, Kim. I have a question with respect to the Menorah Park. One of the items there is a retaining wall, and you have a plan to replace it. I'm going by my memory here. Can't find it. I think it's in 2026. And you're suggesting replacing it with a stone wall. And presently, it's got a pressure-treated wall that's lasted for, 34 years. Do you have pricing for a wood wall compared with a stone wall? And I noticed this is an additional question that this is a 15,000 is for a reserve. What's the total cost of that wall going to be?
At this time, it is estimated that the total cost for replacing it with a stone wall would be approximately $45,000. The reason that we've gone with the stone wall is because that is similar, or the exact, as to what we have done on the other side of the building with the retaining wall that was over on that side of the building, which we were having challenges with a few years back. Same type of challenges as what you see right now. It was starting to lose its integrity. So we felt it was prudent to replace it, and we chose going with the stone retaining wall for its longevity.
If it was a wood wall, what would it cost?
I'm sorry, well, I would have to get
Like- like
I'd
the-
have to get exact pricing for that because I did go to a contractor to get pricing for
Okay.
this.
I'd be interested in a replacement cost as a part of your presentation.
Any other questions or comments? Fred?
Yes, Ms. Heaton, very good report. A lot of echoes from your report last year are in it, because I remember how much I think last year your total ask for capital was about $360,000, and we cut you down to about $105,000, which was quite a drastic cut. And I apologize for that, but money doesn't grow on trees, and we have to set the total budget. This year, if my math is correct, not counting the $139,700 for Purple Hill, but counting the $48,000 for the playground, you're asking for $353,000. And all I can say for today's discussion is, without having the whole budget in front of me, it's difficult to say how much of that we're going to give you. It is a big ask, and you know how tight money is. And I would just also, I'd like to put on the record, and I do this every year, I know we have two wonderful community centers, Mono Community Center and Menora Park, but it distresses me how much those buildings cost us. To put it in perspective, in the 2023 budget, we estimated rental revenues for the Mono Community Center of $42,240. This year, Kim is asking for the capital for that budget of $58,700, and that's just capital. Never mind the operating costs, cleaning, electricity, okay? So we're going to spend more on capital on that building than we anticipate getting in rental revenue in 2023. Yes, I know there's a larger community benefit to having those buildings. We're going to have the Halloween party there next weekend, right? Where we don't charge any admissions. So there is a community benefit, but I think we have to make sure our residents understand how much these buildings cost us. Those are all my comments, Mr. Worship, Mr. Mayor.
Elaine?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Bill Monroe for asking my question about the tennis courts. So thank you. That's answered. We did talk about a recreation asset management plan. Have we seen that?
There is a recreation asset management plan that we work through on an annual basis. We keep updated. And this budget reflects items within that asset management plan that do need to be brought to your attention. As a matter of fact, a number of the items, we've extended their life
Right,
over and above what the asset management plan suggests.
right. Okay, thank you, Kim.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Kim, for the work on this, and I echo what the deputy mayor has said, that sometimes we can't afford absolutely everything, and as you know, we try and stretch out the life of various things. Recreational asset management plans, like other asset management plans, can be somewhat arbitrary in terms of the so-called life expectancy of something. And we somehow managed to get a few extra years out of various things. But thank you again for the work on it. Okay. Next item under unfinished business is the Orangeville Fire Services Agreement. And if we could have a quick report as to the outcome of follow-up discussions with the town of Orangeville. Les, would that be you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The treasurer from the town of Orangeville has provided a report that I have forwarded to council, which is the new item added to today's agenda. Now, the treasurer does say it still has to, I guess it got passed at the CAO level, it still has to go to Orangeville Council, but what they're doing, instead of the first year for 2023 being a 26% increase, they're spreading it out over 2023 and 2024, so 15%, 15%, and then the balance of the increase. The total number does not change. They just, the bulk of it is over the first 2 years, and then the total collection is the same. Now, in the treasurer's memo, I guess he jotted down some questions that council had to the delegation, and he looks like he did his best to answer them. So basically, for 2023, it goes from $1,004,000 to $914,000. So a substantial saving there. But now it goes from the 3% increase to next year to 15%. So they're kind of making it up. But at the end of the day, the total number is still the same.
Okay. Councillor Capes?
Just a question through you. The last paragraph that said, well, second last paragraph underneath the chart, it says an interim billing was submitted to the town of Mono for $500,000.
Yes, what happened at that last council, I guess the comment was that we're still paying. However, we were never billed for anything at that point because no contract was signed. So after the meeting, the treasurer and I, the Orangeville's treasurer, we had a chat. He says, look, I mean, we've been covering your municipality. Can I at least give you an interim bill? I said, for sure. So they sent us a bill for half of the original amount.
Okay, so
But it would still be, our total cost would still be over 500,000.
Right, but we budgeted more last year.
Yes, for this year's budget, we did budget the $1,004,000 and $643.
Right, and so we're going to pay that 900. So we've paid an interim deposit of 500.
So we just owe them the balance.
Okay, so that's good. It actually evens out every year to in and around $1 million. I'm very grateful that they came, that they listened to us, and that they went back and you had the conversation, and that they've come forward with us. So I'm very pleased by that.
You mentioned, though, it is subject to Orangeville Council approving
They
it.
didn't have, because of the timing was so tight, they didn't have
Yeah.
a chance to go. But I'm assuming if it got approved at the CAO level, the staff recommendation would to go, I mean, the year's almost over anyways.
Yes.
So I'm assuming council, I mean, it's a big assumption, but I'm assuming their council will agree to this.
Right.
Just to get the agreement signed.
Yeah. Ralph?
Just a question for information, maybe to Fred Simpson. What we have here a confidential information agreement with 12 parts to it. It seems to me very, very detailed. Is there, what's going on there? Confidential information agreement's a part of it.
So I'm sorry, Councillor Magdalene, I'm not following what
Okay.
you're looking for.
In the agreement, amendment to the agreement, after the pricing, is a section that's labeled confidential information.
Yeah, so that is to bring the agreement into compliance with MFIPA,
With what?
the privacy legislation, the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. So that's all that is to ensure that the exchange of information between the two municipalities complies with that act, and it lays out who's responsible to reply to MFIPA requests.
So this does not relate to any previous history or difficulties, it's just a boilerplate.
Yeah, this is just cleaning up. This was the Orangeville Clerk's Department asking that this be addressed within the municipality, just to clean up their procedures and policies with respect to the act.
Okay. So if there's no further questions or comments, I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw authorizing the town of Mono to execute an amending agreement with the town of Orangeville regarding fire protection services substantially in the form as attached as Schedule A to the bylaw, and that it be signed by the mayor and clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover? Councillor Capes, seconded by Councillor Magdalene. Fred?
Can we pass this motion before the town of Orangeville does? I mean, what if something happens?
It's like any agreement. If the other side doesn't agree to it, then it's null and void. The agreement's not legal until all parties have signed it. By us passing it now, it just speeds things up by a month.
Well, and it puts us in a better position in terms of when their council gets their hands on this. Melinda?
Thank you, Mayor. So just a question for Les. Are we, so we're holding back, where are we going to pay that $500,000? Or did we pay it?
Oh, no, we made the payment of the 500,000, knowing full well at the end of the day, the contract's going to be more than the 500,000. Yes. Yes.
Okay, any opposed to the motion? The motion's carried then. Next item is the list of unfinished and deferred council business. Is there any comment or questions about the list and the content of the list? Councillor Capes, and then Councillor Magdalene.
On our list of unfinished business. So, number 3, site alteration.
Microphone, please.
Yes, on number 3, site alteration, that was added to the agenda in October of '22. There's no date assigned and there's no update. Number 5, set fines and bylaw enforcement, was placed on that unfinished business October 21st. There's no date and no update. Was part of that handled by the bylaw enforcement procedure that we already did? Because I wasn't here when this was originated, so I'm not sure if that's included in that or if that's a separate thing. Separate thing, okay. The number 9, the Lynn Gibson Park, the camera, I would have thought that that was an easy thing to install. That's just a comment. And number 11, large residential homes. It was put there in October 22. There is no date and there's no update. I know we keep saying we're going to get a public meeting on this, but that unfinished business report has not been updated, so those are my questions.
Let's start with Dave on the monster homes.
Thank you, Mayor Krillman. We're targeting for the 28th of November. We have a lead-up time for the public meeting, and I'm also considering bringing a draft zoning bylaw amendment along with it. It'll be for review. It's under public review as well as an OPA that you've seen before. And we're going to have a dialogue about it, including a public dialogue about it as to how we craft not only policy, which we've already laid out, which is in the report I previously prepared, but also consideration maybe for a draft zoning bylaw amendment as well. Doesn't have to go that far, but at least it will be part of the dialogue at a public meeting. There's some tricky parts to doing a zoning bylaw amendment for large homes, and I'll bring the report forward to explain all that. Bear in mind, we're still desperately looking for another replacement, so there's a lot of other work we're doing day to day that's been a struggle against this policy measure, but that's my target date is November 28th.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just follow up, are we seeing through the municipal approval process any uptake in the number of building permits being requested for substantially larger homes than normal?
To respond, Mayor Krillman, I wouldn't say that specifically. We just have a volume of city view applications we need to deal with for municipal approval, zoning compliance. There's a few, but they're not a regular matter per se, and they're certainly by no measure the majority as part of the city view building code review process.
One thing we discussed at County Council last meeting was the possibility of looking at requiring certain green standards on homes of a particular size, inasmuch as their environmental footprint is so much greater than your average, single-family dwelling. And it was suggested to us, and Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, that we could achieve that through a zoning amendment that basically says homes of, X number of square feet plus are expected to have the following, 10 different green features in recognition of the impact that they have on the environment. So I throw that out into the hopper before your meeting.
Just to comment on that, if I can. And yes, I have seen that where that's been implemented, and actually this should form part of our climate change action plan. So I agree with that.
Ralph?
Has a camera been installed at the Lynn Gibson Park?
Thank you, Councillor Mantalo. I was actually going to speak to that. Yes, the camera and the trail counter were both installed prior to Thanksgiving weekend. We're just in the process of collecting data.
Thank you.
Can it come off the list then?
I believe it's on the list for council to make a decision as to access, whether or not you want there to be access to the conservation area via Lynn Gibson Park. I understand that's the reason this is on the list.
That's part of it.
Well, maybe it should be reworded then.
This says installation of camera. Okay,
Yeah.
so I see that's status.
That's the status, but the actual description is the access.
Yeah.
I had a second item.
Okay.
The second item to put Councillors Davies and Capes on the spot. Do you have an estimated date when you'll have your project completed? That's the number 10, purchasing property in Mona working group.
Before Christmas.
Give us a progress report.
Before Christmas.
Okay.
Before Christmas.
Before Christmas.
Thank you. Well, we should have that written down there.
Well, it's on the public record now. Any other issues arising from this? And I think to the issue of the review of set fines and bylaw, sorry. Fred?
No, I just thought you were moving on, Your Worship, and there were two other items that had been raised, looking for
Yeah,
questions.
no, I was going to just mention on the bylaw fine thing. I've been talking to Fred frequently about this, and I think he's having a discussion with our prosecutor tomorrow. And we have the potential of a different approach to the fines. Rather than incorporating them into bylaws individually, it could be sort of an overriding schedule of fines. They'll all be under $1,000 for set fines because that's the ceiling that we're held to. You know, I'm confident that this is going to be moving along apace.
So just to the point of, we've got established date timeframes for many, but not all. And so I would like us to have established or estimated timelines for those other ones if we could. Yeah.
Fred?
So both those items listed are noted as being difficult, i.e. large projects. And at this point, I can't reasonably give a timeline because we're not far enough down the road. For example, on set fines, really haven't advanced that project beyond initial discussions at the staff level, as Worship Creelman just noted. Just moving that to a discussion with our prosecutor, which is just this week. And on the other item that was raised, which is the site alteration bylaw, we are at the staff level starting the groundwork on developing the application processes. So there'll have to be multiple applications to support that bylaw, and that's what we're waiting on. So we're just at the level now of starting the development and the conversation on that. So when that discussion happens, which, Mr. Dahmer, you can correct me, I believe that next meeting is next week. We'll have more information and be able to, at that time, perhaps create an estimate. So we're just not far enough down the project to give you if I give you a timeline now, it'll be completely arbitrary. These are big projects, and I want to have something realistic and achievable to give you in the way of a timeline, even for the next step.
Yes.
So what you're telling me is there is movement on these items. Is there a standard phase that these items go through?
No, on these projects, they're They're large enough that I may produce a Gantt chart for them, but I haven't for either of these to establish milestones. Every project is unique, and I tackle them as necessary to get the job done. And again, these ones are they're big, complex projects, and they have not had a lot of time dedicated to them yet.
Right, but if there was something like initial investigation and then review with staff and then, you know, whatever, something so that we can actually see the movement, because as it looks like nothing's happening. And so I think it would be great to be able to demonstrate, yes, something's happening. It's just a,
Okay. Well, I'll work towards getting you some timeline that I think is achievable and have that in the near future.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving along. Next item on the agenda would be the report on Mono landfill openings. And we now have some statistics that show both the spring and fall openings. And any questions on that? It looks like the numbers are pretty good. It's a popular service. I'll tell you, it's a real popular service. Do you have any suggestions, Matt, as to are we hitting the mark on a Wednesday and a Saturday combination, or should we maybe think about more Saturdays than Wednesdays, or what do you think might work best when we do it next year?
Thank you, Mayor Kurlman. It seems to be everything's working pretty well the way it is right now. The numbers kind of explain how things are rolling, and we'll come up with some proposed dates for next year in the coming months, but I don't know if there's any, it needs any changes at this point.
If I could make one small suggestion, and that is, I think that with a tax bill going out between now and spring, at some stage we could have a slip of paper in there that is exclusive to the issue of the landfill openings for brush. You know, we've used all the other conventional tools to promote, but I think that might be a valuable one if we can turn our minds to it. I know there's heavy competition for those opportunities, but I'm putting a marker down for a tax bill insert.
Will do.
Okay. No questions? Next item is the DEI advice to council. First item is the advice having to do with a consultant. Does anyone from the DEI committee want to address this? Go ahead.
So this is a subject that's surfaced a couple of times on our DEI committee meetings, that of having a DEI lens. And as I may have mentioned earlier, it's something you think is a fairly easy thing to do. It's a series of questions that are appropriate that helps each one of us, whether staff or council, to do our job better with and recognize that sometimes people are missed out inappropriately. And the questions are actually fairly straightforward, and Mr. Monroe suggested that we might just make use of another lens from another municipality is a suggestion that has, I think, some merit. There are a number of ways of approaching this, and I don't think that the committee is committed to any one. I think it's beyond the committee's knowledge base to do this properly, and it needs to have some either input, and whether we borrow, steal another municipality's lens, or we ask for somebody else to come in. I think those are the two options. And I don't think it's appropriate that council investigate a consultant. I think that's something the staff is very skilled at, and we're not.
Fred?
When I was in the chair and there was a public question period, Mr. Monroe asked a question on this very item, and I said that I would allow him to speak although it's an exception during the debate on this subject. If Mr. Monroe wanted to talk, he doesn't, okay.
Billy, you sure? Okay. And Mike, I think I saw your hand up.
So, so I think maybe one of the points that is missing here is we're really just going to provide council with a cost estimate of what this would look like. At that time, there could be a further discussion as to what our steps moving forward would be. And within that cost estimate, there'd be a set guideline as to what we are going to focus on with respect to the DEI lens. With respect to the DEI lens, it seems like it may have been driven by me. It pretty well was driven by me at the committee level. I supplied the committee with a report as to where we should move, and the committee is progressing in a healthy manner, in a healthy way, in my opinion. But everything came back to what a DEI lens does. The same as a climate lens, the same as a landscape lens, the same as a planning lens. These are items that are utilized by town to get to the objectives that we're trying to get to. So as we go through the investigation of the cost on this, this would come back to council, to the committee maybe first, and then to council before anything would be done. And it would, depending on how council sees the importance of this, it would probably be a 2025 recommendation, because we won't get this prior to the 2024 budget passing, and it would probably be a 2025 budget. By that time, your staff will have been trained. Your CAO can be continuing his training, and you'll get a better sense as to whether this could be done in-house or worked on outside source.
Elaine, and then Fred.
Right, so just to go back to the committee's mandate, it did say the town, so part of the mandate was missing from the resolution. So the role is to help ensure that the town council applies a diversity, equity, inclusion lens to its policies, services, programs, and practices. And again, inclusion of a lens, not that the committee would actually create that lens, but the committee's specific responsibilities were to provide insight and advice, to provide recommendations for opportunities for education, and to liaise with organizations and stakeholders. So those are the three prongs of that mandate. But their mandate was never to develop that lens. It was to make recommendations. And so just to what our CAO is saying, the lens does require some expertise, which is not the expertise that the committee feels they hold. And so we are guided by conversations and by the CAO at that meeting. And knowing that this is an important aspect, as you say, it's a lens that we view everything through, just like all those other lenses. And so, yes, we can, what do you call, R&D, research and development, Robin Steele or whatever that is. And so there's lots of opportunity for that. But again, this is another ask if we put it back to staff for staff time. And it's not a quick project. So I think we need to consider that there might be some expertise out there that could quickly do this for us, and it wouldn't cost us a lot of money, so.
Melinda, Fred, and then Melinda.
And actually, I'm in favor of the motion, but to pick up on a point that I think Mr. Monroe made, can I suggest to staff, when they look at this cost of hiring a consultant, they contemplate the idea that the consultant would look at the work being done at the county level, because there could be some transfer of what they're doing in terms of a DEI lens, just in rewording some of their bylaws. I mean, I don't think we need to look to a consultant who has to reinvent the wheel. Some of this work is being done close by, and the consultant should look at it.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate what everybody is saying, but for any consultant that I've been involved with so far, it's expensive. And I'm not sure that our knee-jerk reaction should always be to pay somebody else to do it. So I'm pleased that Mr. Dunmore's saying, you know, that this really is just for us to get an estimate and then make some decisions. Because again, everybody is learning about this as we're going forward, and there's more and more information, not just Google, but there's more and more and more information all of the time that I don't want us to feel duped at the end, which we have at some consultants. I've heard that, well, we had a consultant who told us that, but did we really need that in the end? Well, we spent $70,000 on it, and, you know, those kinds of comments that I am very cognizant of the cost on this.
Well, and to be fair, it's not that we hire a consultant, but we find out what the cost of a consultant would be. My suspicion is that it will confirm the adage that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. In other words, borrow something from another municipality, because quite frankly, if you hire a consultant, chances are they take the document that they last prepared for the last client, and they do they take out the name of the municipality and put Mono in there. So, I mean, I don't see the difference between the two. But I think the motion would give us a sense of the cost and probably determine a different route going forward. So I'm going to read the motion, and we'll see how it goes. Whereas the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee's mandate includes providing council with recommendations to identify systemic barriers faced in accessing municipal services, information, programs, and facilities, as well as to foster a deeper sense of inclusion, especially for marginalized groups in the town. Therefore, it be resolved that the committee recommends that council request that town staff investigate the cost of hiring a consultant to create a DEI lens document for the town of Mono. Mover, Councillor Mantalo, seconded by Councillor Capes. Any further discussion, comments? Any opposed to this motion? The motion's carried. The second item of advice from the committee has to do with training. And who would like to speak to that? Councillor Mantalo?
Despite what some of us think, we do have to learn about this, and it does take some effort, and that can be done in many different ways. And I think that we need to look into the possibilities. Includes we do have this organization called the CCDI, and that organization, I spoke to them actually in the last couple of days about training. They do have a number of options. One is an instructor-led training, which means they're here in person. The other is a virtual training. They have a number of different levels of, areas of training that they think are worthwhile, three or four. The other approach is to use learning modules, which are available with CCDI. And there are many other organizations that are doing training in this, because it's become something that municipalities and corporations need. So I'm not sure what's the most appropriate training that for this, but somebody needs to be willing to look into this and provide some costing.
Okay. Councillor Capes?
Thank you. So the CCDI, we have all been, except for me yet, signed up to go in and access all of that material. Now, the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion, and so I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but that has been available since, I know we got an email, you got an email from the previous CAO, and I hope that you've taken advantage of looking at that materials. But maybe we need some explicit direction on which modules we should be focusing on.
Mike?
Your worship, through to Councillor Capes. So as council will recall, one of the items in my appointment to CAO is my education training, which will trickle down into staff education training. My goal is to present that to council, and it will outline where staff is going to be moving forward. The motion that is on the or is on the table. Will be on the table. So the Center for Diversity and Equity and Inclusion is a great repository. It's generally free, other than a yearly membership, and I will be utilizing that to create the training modules for staff and perhaps on to some committee levels that we'd like them to read. The reason we're asking for a budget will be continuation of course, of our membership in that module. But the Truth and Reconciliation one may cause for some budgetary funds through a similar approach to what council had enacted a couple of years ago with respect to the speaker that we had. And that would be an annual learning process. So that may come in the form of a presentation to council and public, staff included, or it may come in a training module. But I'm not seeing a lot of Truth and Reconciliation in the Center of Diversity yet. That is straightforward and clearly to understand.
Ralph?
Thank you, Mr. Dunmore. And you might consider the instructor-led training as an option to, as well as modules, which would certainly up the budget a little bit.
This will come in a draft form to the committee for review, and definitely we'll be sure to include anything that comes out of that.
I was going to suggest that as we already budget for staff training, hopefully some of the budget for this year can incorporate this without simply being an add-on to everything else that might be offered.
So the staff training budget, similar to the Public Works training section, they're pretty well slotted for individual items already. We can definitely look at what that mandate is from a health and safety perspective and things like that. But that's why Les and I are working to determine whether the DEI committee should have their own section. So it's identified not only to the public that our commitment is there, but it's easy for council to understand. So as we look at our staff training budget, we'd be more than happy to see what our regimen is this year on the existing items and see if we can get into some DEI with respect to that.
Yeah, and I recognize that there's certain training that is mandated and required, and obviously it wouldn't be at the expense of that. But if there's other training that is deferrable or can be foregone, then the DEI activity could be picked up without too much of an impact on our overall budget.
We can look at that, Your Worship. Thank you.
So I have a motion, whereas the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee's mandate includes providing council with recommendations on education and awareness programs for the committee, council, and staff on anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and whereas the July 18th, 2023 council passed resolution 10-14-2023 directing the committee to provide council with recommendations on skill-based training for staff and council, specifically in the intercultural competency, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism. Therefore, be it resolved that the committee recommends that council provide a training budget for all staff and members of council, specifically for DEI-related training. Do I have a mover for that, Deputy Mayor? Seconded by Councillor Mantolo. Any discussion on the committee recommendation? Any opposed to the motion? Motion's carried. I have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Do I have a mover? Councillor Capes, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Items on Schedule A that members of council would like to address. Deputy Mayor?
I think I've mentioned this before, but on item 4, the Shelburne and District Fire Board capital budget, and you'll note that the levy to the municipalities is increasing very sharply. That's because in that budget, if you flip to it, in 2027, we're anticipating the building of a new fire hall, and we've penciled it in at 15 million, which is, quite frankly, just a guess. We really don't know. We based it on what we had understood to be the initial thought of a new fire hall for Orangeville. However, I want to point out, although this is the adopted capital budget, there was a big discussion. Councillor Davey can correct me if I'm wrong or elaborate on this, and I'm not sure that 15 million for a new fire hall is going to go forward. There are some possibilities and some difficulties of taking the existing fire hall and modifying it a bit. The garage portion of the existing fire hall is perfectly adequate. It holds all our trucks. It's structurally sound. The difficulty is the office portion, where on a training night we can have more volunteers in there than the room can hold, and we don't have room to expand that office portion. And we've had an engineer look, and we can't put a second floor on. However, we have requested our fire chief to make some inquiries about getting some additional land to the east of our fire hall from the Agricultural Society. So I just wanted you to understand that's the adopted capital budget. That doesn't mean we're going ahead in 2027 with that 15 million.
Councillor Capes and then Councillor Mangtalo.
A question. We need more space for people to get training in. Is this fire-related training? Is this safety training? It's not hands-on with a fire hose, because you can't build something big enough to do that in. So we have creative thinking. There's a rec center not too far away with a whole huge room that would accommodate all of those firefighters. Like, I'm not sure I understand why you need to build the office out for that.
Yeah, that's a good question. And during our discussion at the last meeting, we even said right across the parking lot, there's the agricultural building, which easily can hold 40 volunteer firefighters. And that idea wasn't dismissed, but I don't think it was grabbed up either. There are some alternative possibilities, yes.
Councillor Davey and then Councillor Mangtalo.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's not just for training. It's that the whole building itself is it's old and not big enough. But for the growing fire department. Like at the moment, we've got as many people as we do, but Shelburne is, as you know, doubling in size or tripling, isn't it? So thinking of going forward, the future needs, the calls are increasing. I mean, there's just more business going on in that building than there has been in the past, and so it needs to be refurbished. And as you know, the question of refurbishment versus rebuild, it's often cheaper to rebuild than to try to figure out refurbishing. But just to correct one of the things that Councillor or Deputy Mayor Nix commented on, that our garage is fine. Our garage is great, except to say that the back third or quarter of it is used at the minute to hang and where all of their lockers and their equipment is. And the regulations now state that has to be a separate space, that it can't, that equipment can't be in the same. So it even needs modification. So the whole thing needs this, that over here, and this and that. So then it's kind of like, well, how about if we just rebuild? Because we have this footprint of a very small, very weird lot. When they were showing us, it's like, well, why don't we, what's the curling club doing there? Who uses the curling club, right? Like we had a very interesting discussion, but basically, could we move even? Could we, so they're just in the investigative stage, but with Shelburne getting bigger and the calls getting more, they need more space.
Ralph.
I think this is a good discussion. We're trying to figure out why, if they need another fire hall. And the why is, you're okay on vehicles. You probably won't be adding any more vehicles in the near future.
With the exception of what Linda just said about some of the equipment.
Yeah, we just bought a
Bunker
new vehicle.
equipment.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we just bought a new vehicle. Well, we bought a new to us
Replacement, just
vehicle.
replacement.
It was a used one. I mean, the Shelburne Fire Department is very cautious and frugal, and I think should be commended by that, because getting, you're right, a replacement, but getting a new, I forget what it was called. Rescue truck at a reasonable cost, given how much everything costs.
Okay, but we're looking at a new fire hall, and why was whether we need a new fire hall, or we need to, looking at getting a new fire hall, or can we deal with the present one with some addition? And what I'm hearing is that you need space for the men and women's equipment, personal equipment, and you need a place where you can do teaching. And that's the basic of it.
It is, but and I'll put one other qualification on the floor, which John and I are aware of. All of this could change because the county has just approved a $70,000, what?
It's on our budget, too. It's on our agenda, too.
Oh, you're right. But, so we may be hiring a consultant to look at the fire service in Dufferin County, and.
You are.
Yeah, we are. And who knows what that consultant is gonna tell us? Maybe. So that's in the background too.
But can I just, they're going to tell us that we need fire services in the county, right? I mean, the county's growing, and we need fire services. So it's not like it's going to go away. We're in Mono, we're not going to all of a sudden come up with our own. So we're married to the services, the four departments that we have that service us. So but it's an information gathering at the minute, right, is what's happening, money-wise.
Yeah, and they'll be looking at structure as well, Councilor Capes.
So just as a question, I see when I drive around the province that in some places they're building paramedic and fire service stations, so they're all together. And there is a paramedic station in Shelburne. Yeah, right behind the Esso station. But I wonder, if you build something like that, do you get more funding from the province? And where is the funding from the province to support the build, to support the infrastructure, to support the housing that they want us to take on?
Good question. Build more homes, but we're not going to support you. And that too.
I don't think it's fair to say that they're not going to support. I think that these are questions that we need to ask the government above us. And, you wonder whether these things were thought of. But even if they weren't thought by the people who decided that developers want to build houses, and there's more people coming, these things it will trickle down to that, not necessarily. But what happened with the 15 million was that the Orangeville Fire Department, their number is now up to somewhere around 25 or whatever. So we had used that as an estimate a couple of years ago, and now with costs being up and so on, it really is scary how much money to build a new building might cost us. And so we're going to need help.
And to that, the Orangeville Fire Department, when they're talking about now they're building an opportunity for them to be a training center, which is great because we can utilize that, and we have, the Rosemont Fire Department has. But it's like, okay, so the province took away the college. Well, they didn't take away the college, according to them, it's still online. But they took away that opportunity, cost us $30,000 more for each fire department to get everybody trained. And now we're going to build a fire department here locally that has all the fire training. Like, it's not making a lot of sense.
Hopefully, we'll get some guidance from the consultant.
And we're paying for it all.
Well, I mean, as we should, right? I mean, that's
Ding
okay,
dong.
then you're going to pay through it, your provincial taxes or whatever, but we is all, right? I mean, we do pay for these things.
Ping pong. Okay. Yes.
Your worship, if I may, so we have an in-camera session at 10:30. We're waiting for the town solicitor to log in, but if staff could have a 10-minute break or a 5-minute break prior to that,
Okay.
would be appreciated.
Why don't we,
Just before we break, can you, when we go in camera, can you explain to Jeff that I'm not being rude, but I
Yeah,
have to leave
I
at
will.
11 o'clock?
I will. Okay, let's have a 5-minute break. When we return, we'll go in camera. When we rise and report, we'll return to Schedule A. How's that?
Sounds great.
Okay.
We are back live.
Thank you, and I have a motion that council move into a closed meeting pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended at 10:36 a.m. For Aragon Residential Development, OLT, hearing Section 239, subsection 2, subsection E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Second line, draft plan of subdivision, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And finally, bylaw enforcement report, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B, and subsection E, personnel matters about an identifiable individual and litigation or potential litigation. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Davey moves. Councillor Cape seconds. Any opposed? The motion is carried. We are going to go in camera. Andrew, if you can take us down. Let us know when we're
And
live.
we are back live.
Thank you. And I have a report that we rise from an in-camera session at 12:09 PM, that council accept the advice from the town solicitor and direct that town staff and the town solicitor proceed accordingly. Do I have a mover? Councillor Capes, seconded by Councillor Mantalo. Any opposed? That motion is carried. Flowing from that, I have a fairly lengthy motion that I'll
So,
read quickly. Oh,
Your
sorry.
worship, if I may suggest, if we have Andrew put it on screen again, leave it on screen for 30 seconds.
Yes.
And then
And I'll read.
just pass it without reading it.
Is it the wish of council that we waive the reading of this motion?
No, I
think we Okay.
should read it, it's not that long.
Yeah, well, for the benefit of the public who might be interested in this, I think we should probably read it. Whereas on May 31st, 2023, Line 2 Developments Incorporated, Line 2 Developments, filed applications for a zoning bylaw amendment and plan of subdivision for lands municipally addressed as 753072, second line, north of Coles Crescent and on the west side of the second line EHS, the subject lands, and whereas Line 2 Developments propose to develop the subject lands for a residential subdivision comprised of 349 residential lots, a park block, natural heritage blocks, a wastewater treatment facility, a water treatment facility, a stormwater management pond, and a new public road system with connections to the second line EHS to the east and the Coles Crescent to the south. And whereas on August 24th, 2023, Town Planning and Town Engineer R.J. Burnsides and Associates advised that additional reports were required prior to the application being deemed complete. And whereas on September 20th, 2023, Line 2 Developments filed a notice of motion with the Ontario Land Tribunal requesting that the applications be deemed complete without filing additional and/or updated reports. And whereas Line 2 Developments and the town have resolved and settled the motion, now therefore be it resolved that, number one, the zoning bylaw amendment and plan of subdivision application shall be deemed complete as of September 25th, 2023, being the date of the filing of an updated transportation report. Number two, the settlement of motion is limited to deeming the completeness which has now been settled as per paragraph 1 and does not restrict the town from substantially continuing to raise the grounds and issues set out in its correspondence of August 24th, 2023, and Line 2 Developments from continuing to respond to those grounds and issues on the processing and consideration of the applications. 3, that neither Line 2 Developments nor the town shall seek costs of the motion against each other. Number 4, Line 2 Development shall withdraw its motion from the Ontario Land Tribunal, and this resolution shall come into full force and effect upon such withdrawal being effected. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mantalo, seconded by Councillor Davey. Any discussion further? Questions? Any opposed? The motion is carried. And no, that was the direction. That was just the simple direction. So, Fred?
I just, and you may be there, Your Worship, I just want to remind council that the resolution to accept Schedule A has been moved and seconded, needs to be passed.
Thank you. My apologies. I wasn't there. Any objections to accepting Schedule A? Motion is carried. Thank you for revisiting that. Staff reports, any staff reports? Oh.
We finished Schedule A? We didn't finish.
Oh, sorry, okay.
We went into camera while.
Right, okay. I am really not there. Okay, any questions or comments on content of Schedule A?
I had just a couple. With respect to item number 10, I think this one is an interesting one. Given our public question regarding, that they said they were going to do something. Anyway, it's 2025. Just to reiterate and be clear that the deadline, they told us when they came and we first started talking and everything, that everybody was going to get started in 2023 and it was going to be spectacular and everything. But the real carrot there is that everybody in Ontario will have it, right, by 2025. So, end of 2025, which is really 2026, or there will be penalties. Is that what I'm reading in this?
I believe so, and the other carrot is the fact that Rogers, along with other telecoms, have accepted substantial monies from both the province and the federal government towards completion of these projects. The Mono project is probably not the only one under a $86 million CRTC fund grant.
So, because this is a question, as I say, people don't necessarily phone me, but when I do talk to people, this always comes up. And so to know that that there are some checks and balances, I guess, in place, and that just put on our patience for 2026 as opposed to the end of 2023, which seemed unreasonable. Did you want to say something?
And I think 2026 is probably, but with respect to the administrative penalties, this is really trying to clear up that, in our case, that the town of Mono doesn't impede any applications, right? So, and we've provided nothing but fast service to our providers, so.
And thank you. And then the other one that I wanted to mention, bring to people's awareness, was the one from Burlington's resolution about the Airbnbs and the Verbo, which who would have thought that Burlington would be a hotspot for vacationing? But I think this is. I think this is a big deal, Nothing's wrong with it. I just thought it was an urban center that was, a working urban, not necessarily vacationing. So this past weekend and the weekend before, when it was Thanksgiving and all that, and the leaf peepers and people coming up and everything, I mean, we are a destination now. And I do think that it's something that we really need to address this sooner than later.
Do you want to support
thank
that
you.
Motion?
And thank you, because I was going to bring a motion, a notice of motion for that, so I would definitely support that as well.
Yes.
So do we do a notice of motion now or after?
No, we can actually pass a motion right now. It's in front of us.
If you've got a motion that you want to prepare, as we discussed last week, if you want to bring a fully prepared, crafted motion at a future meeting, that also works.
I think we need to, because there's things to consider. So there were some that I circulated a while back when we had that complaint. So I think we do need to bring a motion back, but.
So how do we do that?
So we have a notice of motion on the floor, do we?
Yes.
To bring a motion about third.
So notices and motions will come up later in the meeting, and they can be
Exactly.
given at some
Okay,
time.
excellent.
All right, we're great.
Okay, any other items on Schedule A? Okay. Now I can jump to the reports of council and staff. Melinda, anything to report?
What do I have to report? We've had so many meetings recently, then that we've had some recreation activities. Halloween parties this coming weekend. Looking forward to that. I'll be there. But no, I don't think, and we've got the minutes from the fire board meetings and so on. So no, I don't know. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Ralph? Nothing. Okay. Elaine?
No, Heritage, DEI, we've had meetings and you've seen motions. Rosemont District Fire Department, the total capital and operating budget increase will be coming to you at 5.5%. And we do have a survey going out to the volunteer firefighters for benefits.
Thank you. Staff, anything to report? Kim?
Just very quickly, just wanting to update council that with this being high color season and with the Mono Center has been rented out extensively between now and the beginning of December, the parking lot will be closed for public parking both Saturday and Sundays between now and the first week of December. So we will be doing the same as we did last weekend. We'll be placing signage and barricades and letting the renters of the hall know, and they'll be able to move the barricades as their guests arrive.
But just to that, if you have a weekend where, say on a Saturday, there is no rental, is the parking lot open or closed?
Unfortunately, right now, I don't have a Saturday where there is no rental,
Or a Sunday?
or a Sunday,
Okay, good to know.
okay? So we are quite busy out at Mono Center.
So that explains why this weekend, in addition to the weather being lovely and the leaves being terrific, there were cars parked all over our streets, all over. Did anybody go by the park and notice that? There was lots of pink tickets on the windshields, too.
There are lots of people pulling over on Airport Road to take selfies. Like, yeah.
It's beautiful here.
Yeah. That's
Okay, anything else?
If I could just also let council know and the public know that Lynn Gibson Park and Mona College courts, or the tennis courts at Lynn Gibson Park and the pickleball courts at Mona College will be shut down as of the end of October. The nets will be removed. Lights have been turned off at Mona College Park at this point because we had some challenges with them last week, which we have to sort out with the contractor as far as installation, whether or not they were installed properly. Yes, and so we shut them down immediately as soon as we were made aware of that. And the courts at Mono Center, the tennis courts, I've spoken with the tennis club, and they'll be shutting them down via whatever the weather dictates. So they're looking to hopefully play tennis into the mid-November season. Okay?
I went by one night and it was quite late, and those lights in Mono Center were still on. And I thought, and I couldn't see anyone playing tennis.
So they're on a timer at Mono Center, so once you push the button, then, so there could have been someone out there playing at 7 o'clock.
This was around 10 o'clock.
So they're set to go off at 10 PM. So if it was after 10, they should have been off. I can certainly have Dave check the timer on that because he does control the timer for those lights. Actually, I believe the tennis court, or the tennis club, and I'll verify this, I believe they sent me an email saying that they're happy to have them shut down at 9 PM at this point as well, at this time of the season.
I think that would be appreciated.
Certainly, I'll follow up on that. And one last thing is I do want council to be aware that our new viewing platform out at Lynn Gibson Park for the tennis is complete. Our Dave Mikowski did an incredible job building that on his own. However, it seems that someone has decided that it'd be a great place to have a fire is on top of our brand-new deck surface. So unfortunately, it was, they didn't do a lot of damage, but the evidence was certainly there that it was attempted.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. That is so discouraging to know, but that answers the question that I've had a number of times recently with our new pickleball and tennis and everybody excited about it. Why has it got a lock on it, you know? Because, I mean, wow, that's just awful. That's just awful.
Any other staff reports? Who wants to go next? Matt?
Thanks, Mayor Krillman and Council. Just a quick update on Public Works. We're in the middle of fall grading, getting preparation for winter and changing all the trucks and plows on, doing tires and stuff like that. We're still having a bit of a challenge trying to find seasonal staff. We've reopened that posting, so it's ongoing until filled. It's unlikely that we'll get it filled. And as you know, I sent an email a week or two ago with respect to Amanda. Her last day will be the 24th, and we've since posted a temporary position that we could hopefully fill until Kara returns in March. So, anyway.
Anyone else? Les, you're smiling.
Thinking about numbers.
Sorry, mic on. No, just working on the budget with the department heads and pushing hard. They're pushing back. They have no time. But we'll get it to council at the right time.
Okay. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor Crillman. I mean, I'm not going to go through all the projects. There are numerous projects, many of which we spoke of tonight. But on a similar vein to Matt, we are going through interviews soon for the replacement for plan assistant. It's a challenge. We have a couple of interviews. In fact, in the 2 weeks or so since, or 3 that we originally posted, I think 3 of the candidates said thanks, but I've already got another job. So it's a competitive world out there. So yeah, that's an update for you. Thanks.
Okay. Mike, anything?
All good, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Do we ever use, for assistance and things, do we ever use temporary staff, or is it beyond the qualifications that you get from a temp person?
We have passed that on to the temp agencies for consideration, so we're hopeful to get any applicants right now. We have a couple that are in there, but it's difficult for the temporary stuff. You know, most people want a little bit of security and knowing how long the duration is. Like in this particular case, we're very short term, but yeah, it gets circulated, and Andrew has the website set up in such a way that a lot of that stuff gets extracted from these agencies and pulled, so they do see the postings. Yeah, so it's fairly broad.
And Fred, do you have anything for us?
No, Your Worship, I don't.
Okay. Okay, notices of motion.
We're going to bring a motion regarding, I'd like to bring a motion regarding our policy and bylaw report, I guess it is, a motion for our short-term rentals in the town of Mono.
Okay, so we'll have something written up for consideration next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Collaboration, good collaboration. I like the approach Burlington is taking, by the way. You know,
Right?
it seems to be the,
Though they did have a sentence in there, wasn't it, about how so, in contrast to places who just banned it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and do you want some more notices of motion?
Absolutely.
Okay, I would like to bring forward a motion for reviewing our rental waiver policy and establishing some criteria for what qualifies as a community benefit event. I will bring that forward. Do I have a seconder? I don't need a seconder? Do I need a seconder? I don't need anybody. I'm just going to give you a notice, okay. And also a motion to oppose the strong mayor designation, that we won't entertain that in Mono, and also a motion for support for a living wage or basic income, and that's it.
Okay. And Fred, just a little reminder about timing of getting the wordings to you so that they can go out in the agenda?
It would be fabulous if council had those to me by noon on the Tuesday preceding a council meeting.
Excellent.
Next Tuesday. Okay. People have got their homework assignments.
Okay.
Fred, Ralph, anything? Nothing. Okay. Okay. I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Mono in Session 21-2023 held on the 24th of October 2023, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor Manctalo. Any discussion? Any opposed? And that motion is carried. And finally, I have a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 29 minutes past 12. Mover, Councillor Capes, seconded by Councillor Davy. Any opposition to adjournment? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.